People always complain about traffic, but most often than not, the traffic situation people are experiencing are caused by one or more drivers who have committed different types of traffic violations. However, the problem with most drivers who commit such violations is that they do not know that they are committing them out of habit. On May 31, President Aquino signed into law the Anti-Drunk or Drug Driving Act of 2013. The new law penalizes drivers found to be driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs. What traffic laws should drivers be more aware of? With such traffic laws already in place, how will the government act on these? Who will enforce these laws and ensure that the safety of the motorists is upheld? Good evening, I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno and you are watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News channel. This show is about making the law work for you by giving legal advice on topics that matter to you.
And I'm Attorney Nepomuceno. Tonight, we will discuss your legal rights as a driver and when you're apprehended because of traffic violations. What you need to know about the newly passed Anti-Drunk or Drug Driving Act of 2013, also known as RA 10586.
Our guest for tonight is ASEC Emerson Carlos, Assistant General Manager for Operations for the MMDA. Good evening, ASEC Murph.
ASEC Murph,
Yes.
good evening. Good evening. So I'm sure your phone was busy last Monday.
Last Monday.
With all the traffic that was going on, but you head or your assistant GM for operations.
For operations.
Yes, wala raw siyang tulog.
Oo, sa mga ganon. No?
That's a double whammy for me. When flood and traffic occurs at the same time, that's the double whammy.
And it's at night, wala na tulugan.
Yes,
And
wala
now,
na tulugan yan.
we go to this new law naman na madadagdagan na naman yung trabaho niyo, ASEC. Kasi you have to enforce this law. And it's very similar when I was reading through it, dun sa DUI, driving under the influence sa US. And nakakatakot din siya because a lot of people think, okay, if you're drunk, then you just get penalized pagka nakabangga ka or if you bump someone. But under this new law, you just driving, basta lasing ka or you're drugged, it automatically subjects you to penalties.
Yes, right? Simply put, if you're driving, do not drink, and if you drink, do not drive.
Which is that rule, no?
Yes.
In fact, in the US and other countries, the laws are very strict. Here, ASEC, it wasn't so strict. I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong. There was really no law preventing you from driving while intoxicated, right?
Yes, correct. This is the first law prohibiting driving while you're intoxicated with alcohol or drugs.
So it's definitely the right time to do it.
Yes,
it's long overdue.
It's long overdue because with our accident recording analysis system, a lot of fatal accidents were caused by suspected alcohol users.
And ASEC, you say suspected because at that time there was no way to verify if these people were drunk.
Yes, there's no way. We just use the word suspected because we really can't determine if they're drunk.
So what are the law does provide for cases where a police officer can apprehend based
prima
on
facie
evidence.
The law uses the term probable cause.
Yes.
In order to apprehend a motorist for possible drunk driving, maybe they can, the law states overspeeding,
zigzagging,
straddling, swerving.
Tsaka yung nakita ko yung stopping, yung
abrupt stopping.
So naisip ko, if you're a bad driver, not necessarily drunk, you can actually be stopped and asked to take yung mga sobriety tests.
Yes, the next phase will be the field sobriety test, which if you fail the field sobriety test, then you're subjected to a breath analyzer or a drug testing kit.
Now, what do you go through in this field sobriety test?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. Ano yung mga types of tests?
The usual thing, standing on one leg or reciting the alphabet backwards.
Naku, kahit sober pala baka bumagsak.
Kahit na sober ako, I can't
But seriously, this would still be determined by the implementing rules and regulations to be adopted by the DOH, DOTC, and NAPOLCOM.
Okay. All right.
So
But
at least the
Yeah.
rules would be more precise kung how do you determine if someone is drunk
Yeah.
Yeah.
or
So
drugged.
just
And
to
the law
clarify,
states, and the law states that these field sobriety tests should be published in the website of the LTO.
Okay.
So
But
that
just
the motorists would be properly advised.
Yeah.
But just to clarify though, and just for the sake of our televiewers, the law has been signed, but it's not yet being implemented at the moment, right?
Yes,
Kasi
because
wala pa
there's
implementing
there's
rules
still
and
no
regulations.
implementing rules and regulations.
Yeah.
And I would also like to clarify that we're just deputized agents, the MMDA. The law states that the LTO is the lead agency in enforcing this particular law.
Yes. And I think meron pang provision din sa law which requires MMDA and all of those law enforcement officers to undergo training. Kaya
Yes.
Right.
that will take time, no?
Yes,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
would take time. Although we've been doing alcohol testing against our own enforcers by way of disciplining them, but still we need more training in order
Yes.
to
But,
implement this law
You know,
properly.
Asik, something I want to emphasize to our viewers is the effect if you refuse to undergo sobriety tests. Kunwari, for our viewers out there, if you are stopped because you're suspected of drunk driving or driving under the influence of drugs, the penalties are harsh. If you refuse to
Yeah.
undergo the test, maybe you
If
can
you refuse to undergo the test, your license would be
revoke,
Revoked.
diba? Imagine
immediately
revoked.
revoked.
Wow.
So it's not just like yung parang traffic violations na pwedeng kuhain.
yes.
This is revocation.
And masakit yung penalty na yun kasi
Oo,
you can't,
you can-
Revocation.
cannot drive.
Yeah, so does
And
this
on
mean
top of other cases that may be filed against you.
pag mahuli ka
So
talaga
to some
ng
extent,
lasing,
in other words, you cannot claim your right to remain silent. Diba? You're required to submit yourself.
Yes.
Doesn't that violate some kind of constitutional rule na parang I have the right to remain
I
silent?
don't know, but maybe somebody would
Would probably question the
Probably question
constitutionality
this
of
later
that,
on.
diba?
Yeah.
Kasi
But it's just a test. It's your I don't think you're already condemned as guilty. Parang I don't think it might, but it's a good test.
it exposes you to
Incrimination.
Yeah, incrimination,
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah.
those are the things that you have to watch out for, no? Kasi right now, kasi it's just a law that's been passed. It's not yet. So right now, currently, what are the laws in place to protect the citizens sa mga drunk driving or drug driving? What are the, for example, if I'm caught and I really am intoxicated, you can't charge me, but there are some things that maybe I did. Kunyari,
Yes.
I parked on EDSA.
Yes.
I parked in the middle of EDSA and I was sleeping.
In that situation, I would be charging you for obstruction, reckless driving,
Correct.
and the fact that you're suspected of alcohol
Okay.
would just be an aggravating circumstance.
Aggravating.
Yan yung current. But
yes,
under
that's
the
right.
new
Correct.
law,
Correct.
we have to remind everyone, it's very harsh. Like if you are caught driving drunk, regardless if you bump someone or meron kayong ma-injure, pwede na kayo agad makasuhan under this new law.
In fact,
Yeah.
even if you don't bump anyone, right? Even if you
Yes.
don't
Yes,
bump
exactly.
anyone,
If
If
you're
you're
drunk,
caught driving
tapos
and you're
positive
drunk,
ka sa sobriety test na drunk,
sobriety
then
test, oo.
they can revoke your license. Di ba yung first...
The penalties for
penalties,
the
first
non-professional driver's license is that your license would be suspended for 12 months.
offense. 1 year, yun, no?
On your second offense, your license would be revoked
wow.
Yes.
forever.
This is for non-pro.
Non-pro.
For
As in
non-pro.
ordinary citizens.
For if you're holder of a professional driver's license, if you're caught on the first time, your license would be immediately
Wow,
revoked.
bigat.
Oh,
And you-
revoke perpetually, no?
Perpetually,
Never na sila
and you
makakuha ng
can
license.
no longer get a license of any type.
Of any type. Kahit na
Any
learner's
Yes.
permit, di pwede.
Yeah.
Correct.
Wow.
Very
Because people
harsh.
might be enterprising and just changing their driver's license from professional to non-pro.
Yes, that makes sense.
Now there's also I understand that even let's say if I have an employee, a driver, even the owner, di ba? The owner
Yes.
will be penalized.
Under the law, the owner would have also a liability similar for the fines and administrative sanctions.
Wow. All right. Now we have some questions. Bill is asking via Twitter. Now, how does the law define intoxicated? At what level is the blood alcohol content considered normal?
Well, we have to wait for the implementing rules and regulations. They would have to fix a standard of the level of intoxication. The prevalent level for most all other countries is 0.06.
0.06.
And there are other countries who have 0.0.
Now, just for our televiewers, how many beers is that, or how many?
That's around 2.5 beers, bottles of beer.
2.5 beers. And pagka wine ho, mga ilang glasses yun?
That's a glass of wine.
A glass of wine lang. Okay.
That's
so
it.
for people out there, take note. You'll test positive kung may glass of wine ka. But I guess we have to wait sa rules kung ano yung gagawin nilang drunk driving, anong level.
Yes.
And later, we have a breath analyzer.
Later on,
you can show to us
will show us
itsura.
what it looks like.
Okay.
Diba?
And our next question is from Lauren, and she asks, I browsed through the anti-drunk or drug law. I want to ask what kind of field sobriety test the MMDA will have drivers do. Did they have a similar version to this before? How will the MMDA enforcers know for sure if the driver is high on drugs? Especially since the breathalyzer's function is only to read the blood alcohol in the driver's system.
Well, we have to distinguish. This law is against alcohol and drugs.
Yes.
So as far as alcohol is concerned, we just use the breath analyzer, which has been proven effective. As far as drugs is concerned, we will have to be trained by the PDEA in using those
because
drug kits.
obviously it's not your field of specialty.
I read the rules, the law, wala pa yung implementing rules. But it seems under the law, pag nahuli nila na someone suspected of being drunk, the law enforcement officer can automatically conduct the tests right there and there. Pero, I guess because of the breath analyzer. Pero pag suspected of drugs, kailangan dalihin to a drug test center.
Yes. If you're suspected of drug use, you'll be referred to a drug center or a nearest hospital.
Okay, at least we know that it's accurate. It's good for the viewers to know kasi alam nila na it's legal for the enforcement officer to compel them to go na kailangan nilang sumama para dun sa test.
Now, if you get charged with this law, does that mean you can't be charged anymore with the possession of drugs?
No, this is on top of other laws that you may have violated.
Yeah, very scary law, no? And now let's take a short break. Legal Help Desk will return after these reminders. You're still watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News Channel, and we are still joined by our guest, ASEC Emerson Carlos, Assistant General Manager of Operations for MMDA. Thank you, ASEC Murph.
So, okay, so right now, there was an article that came out. No? I guess there's a lot of questions regarding this article.
Drug test, yes. There was actually someone who asked kasi, parang kailangan pa ba ng drug test again when in fact I already underwent this when I applied for my driver's license. Right.
So what is your position on that? Right now, of course, there was an article that came out just this morning, I think, where Senator Soto said that there was a repeating clause, hindi na required yung drug testing when you get your license. But according to the LTO chief, it's still required. So I think we'll figure that out in the next couple of days, who's right and who's wrong.
Yes, maybe, but in fact, the law is really silent about it. But as far as law enforcers are concerned, particularly the MMDA, we want the drug testing as a prerequisite in obtaining a driver's license retained. Because this is a deterrent to drug abusers in securing driver's license.
I think so. I think it's effective kasi diba, the drugs usually stay in your system for what? About a month. So if you really have a drug addict who can't even stay away from drugs for about a month. Kasi sabihin ng iba, diba, na okay lang yan kasi they can prepare for it. It's not really effective. But if you really can't stay away from drugs for about a month, then you're not fit to have a driver's license.
Right, that's true.
You're endangering the lives of others.
And moreover, we cannot test all drivers.
This is really more for pag mahuli, matimingan mo sila
Yes.
that they're violating.
There should be a probable cause
That's right,
before
that's
we
right.
can apprehend and test
Now,
a driver.
let's go back again to the penalties. I'm quite curious because that if we're talking about deterrent, that's a
Yes.
real deterrent.
Yeah.
What we have now is not only imprisonment, right? But it's also a fine. It's a stiff fine from 20,000 to 80,000, I think.
Yes.
And you're talking about revocation of your license, di ba? Now, I understand there was reference for when it comes to drunk driving and you caused physical injuries to someone, and there are penalties that were laid out on the table based on the revised penal code provisions on,
Yes.
on physical injuries.
Yes.
Now, my question to you, and I think we were discussing this earlier, there seems to be a gap, no? Kasi yung first imprisonment, yung prison menor, no? It required that there's physical injuries inflicted on another person, na it caused blindness, na it caused him to be imbecile, to be insane, and to be impotent. But let's say if the physical injury though was just a scar or he lost a tooth or something, where does the penalty lie?
Yeah, maybe we should look into the spirit of the law. Because the law contemplates of physical injuries while do not mentioning slight or less serious,
Right.
or what kind, how grave the injury was affected upon the victim. I think the law contemplates of all types of physical injuries.
Right. So it depends on the
including
gravity, no?
Yes,
More-
it depends on the gravity of the...
evidentiary na lang yan.
Yes.
But then again, this is a criminal law. So I think they really just place kung ano yung dapat i-punish under criminal law, meaning kailan ka makukulong or kailan din ma-revoke yung license mo. Obviously, as soon as you're drunk driving, 12 months suspension ng license for first offense.
That's
But
for
then,
sure.
yung dun sa mga nasugatan na hindi pasok dun sa law, they can still file a
Yeah.
civil case for damages,
case,
for
yeah.
the hospital expenses, for the times that, of course, for the damages to
Right.
them, for whatever injuries they sustained.
No, ano yung procedure, ASEC, no? What would it be the MMDA filing the criminal charges? Like if you find one of your police officers or one of your officers found out that indeed this person was intoxicated, the MMDA is the one that files
Although this
the
would
charges?
still be determined by the IRR, but I believe this would be the procedure. The apprehending officer would be filing the case
Right.
against the offender.
Or
Yes.
whoever the deputized officer is, right?
Yes,
Because
or-
you're not the only deputized organization.
Most probably, we would not only be the deputized organization. Definitely, LTO would be deputizing the PNP or the HPG because our jurisdiction is only Metro Manila.
Okay. Now, all right, let's continue answering some questions from our viewers. Our next question is from JC via Facebook. Now, as a driver, I fear that my rights may be abused on the road when sometimes I admit I do drink and drive, but I still consider myself a responsible driver. How can I be assured that when apprehended because of this law, my rights are protected? How trained are the MMDA traffic enforcers on this new law? Ayan.
Yes. As far as MMDA is concerned, if we would be deputized, our operational protocol would be, we would be fielding 3 traffic constables at the same time. One to apprehend,
Okay.
the other one to administer the test, and the third would be videoing the whole
That's
procedure.
good. Para walang abuse, no?
Yes, so that the
Yeah.
abuse would not be there, and everything is recorded on a video cam. We can just use our simple cell phones. It won't require buying new cameras for this. So that would be our operational procedure should we be deputized.
Yes. And are you entitled to the record? Kunwari, breath analyzer test, and lumabas kung ano yung level ng alcohol mo, will you be given a copy of
Yeah,
that?
pretty much the same way as we give the overspeeding
ticket, yes.
violators. We
Yeah.
show them the video itself of how fast they were, including the speed which appears on our
That's
video
good.
cam.
Now,
And talking about, we have here a breath analyzer since we're talking about
What is this
it.
contraption here?
And papakita sa atin
Yes.
ni ASEC Murphy itsura.
This is the breath analyzer that we have been using. you simply get a cup, and
Alright.
then you place you insert it here,
Okay.
and someone breathes
Okay.
into the cup.
Just exhales into it. Right?
Just exhales, and then the monitor would indicate whether you're positive or negative.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
If
Just
you're-
positive, negative, walang
Yes,
numbers.
if you're negative, then you're free. You're okay.
Okay.
All right.
If you're positive, the next step would be to use this pipe. You'll place this inside here and you'll blow into the pipe in order to determine your alcohol level content.
Okay.
all right.
And that's what we're waiting for sa implementing rules.
Yes.
Anong number ang mako-consider
Ano level, no?
na drunk driving?
Yes, because you may have drunk, but you're not,
Not-
intoxicated
yes.
as per determination of the
Oo.
IRR.
Or not the enough para maparusahan
Yes,
ka under
not
the
enough.
law. You know, when I was studying for the New York bar, yan yung something that we had to I memorized as well. Yung levels that are considered drunk, and then iba-iba yung penalties in the US. Like if the higher your alcohol content level is, the higher the penalty is.
Yeah, yeah, and well, which I was curious about that, about the substance, no? Kasi, and it could be a little bit subjective here, no, Asek, because obviously some people can handle their alcohol and some cannot. Some are even allergic to alcohol, and we were talking about this off the air. For example, the Dangerous Drugs Act, and then it lists down certain drugs, but there can also be a situation where you took the drugs. I mean, it was prescribed, but nakakaantok, di ba? And let's say you took those prescribed drugs and you drove, and the effect is the same. You still get sleepy, you still get drowsy. Will you be penalized under?
I think that would be a valid defense because you'll be charged in court. So that would be your defense. You can present your own evidence, and the judge would hear this.
That's
Okay.
good
Oh, yeah,
to know.
kasi you can never
But
tell.
in the
Yes,
first
you can
place, you
never
shouldn't
tell.
be driving, no?
Yeah, I
Pag
know.
ganun ka.
But you know, sometimes it just so happens
Yes.
you took
Yeah, you
some
don't
cough syrup
know
or
that
whatever.
that's the effect, no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oo.
All right.
And well, right now we're
Yep.
running out
Yeah,
of
we
time.
are. We are running out of time.
Let's take maybe a short summary for our viewers here, because this is a new law.
It's a new law, yeah.
And a lot of people don't know how serious this is going to be. Imagine if you're a non-professional driver's license holder for the first offense, as soon as you're caught driving drunk, even if wala kang nabangga, wala kang namang nasaktan, but as long as you're behind the wheel and they test you and you're discovered to be drunk based on this breath analyzer, your license can be revoked for 1 whole year for the first offense. Second offense, revoked forever.
Forever, yeah.
Yes.
And then you can also be jailed. No, you can be imprisoned as much as 3 months.
3
no?
months, the
3
least.
months. That's right. And then the fine could range from 20,000 to 80,000.
Yes.
So those are the big ones. But really, as Attorney Karen mentioned, the biggest penalty is probably the revocation of your license. That's like having a coding on you for the rest of your life.
Oh, you can't drive
Parang being imposed
again.
coding for the
Yes.
rest of your life. That you can't drive. And this one, you can't even drive another car.
Yes.
You know, with different.
More than that, it's the conviction.
Yeah,
Right.
kasi
You'll
it's going to be in your
convicted.
record
It's a penal
forever.
offense.
Yes.
That's right. And so you would have that on your
I
record.
think
yeah.
on your record.
I think this is a good deterrent because, for instance, my husband, since the U.S. Anti-drunk DUI law is very strict, he really refuses to drive
Yeah.
every time he's had drinks.
Yeah.
And another thing maybe we can emphasize is just the fact that you refuse to undergo any of the tests.
Yeah, there you
Your
go. That's very
license can be revoked.
Revoked. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
So ask Murph any tips to the drivers out there.
Well, better bring your drivers if you drink.
this will
Or
increase.
take a cab. no?
Yeah, but this will increase the business of valet.
Yes,
as you
definitely.
mentioned,
I've been
right?
mentioning
And
it
cab
off the
drivers.
air.
And cab drivers. Yeah, again, that's the only tip we can provide. No, unfortunately, yes, it will affect our lives, but in a better way. Of course, might affect the businesses of bars, but then maybe they can improve their business on valet.
Extra service by
drinking.
providing drivers.
Yeah, providing drivers and providing valet.
right.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, unfortunately, that's all the time that we have for today. We'd like to thank our guest, ASEC Emerson Carlos, AGM of Operations for the MMDA, for being with us tonight. I'm Attorney Rod Nepomuceno.
And I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno. Join us again next Monday as we discuss your legal rights on the issue of child custody. Good night. Good evening, I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno, and you are watching Legal Help Desk on the Solar News channel. This show is about making the law work for you by giving legal advice on topics that matter to you.
And I'm Attorney Nepomuceno. Tonight, we will discuss your legal rights as a driver and when you're apprehended because of traffic violations. What you need to know about the newly passed Anti-Drunk or Drug Driving Act of 2013, also known as RA 10586.
Our guest for tonight is ASEC Emerson Carlos, Assistant.
People always complain about traffic, but most often than not, the traffic situation people are experiencing are caused by one or more drivers who have committed different types of traffic violations. However, the problem with most drivers who commit such violations is
the General Manager for Operations for the MMDA. Good evening, ASEC Murph.
ASEC Murph.
Yes.
Good evening, Rod.
Good evening. So I'm sure your phone was busy last Monday.
Last Monday.
With all the traffic that was going on, but you head or your assistant GM for operations.
For operations.
Yes, wala raw siyang tulog.
Oo, sa mga ganun, no?
That's a double whammy for me when flood and traffic occurs at the same time.
Yeah.
That's the double
And
whammy.
it's at night.
Yeah.
Wala
And
na
that's
tulugan
yes,
yan.
wala
And
na
now,
tulugan yan.
we go to this new law naman na madadagdagan na naman yung trabaho nyo, ASEC. Kasi you have to enforce this law. And it's very similar when I was reading through it. Doon sa DUI, driving under the influence sa US. And nakakatakot din siya because a lot of people think, okay, if you're drunk, then you just get penalized pagka nakabangga ka or if you bump someone. But under this new law, you just driving, basta lasing ka or you're drugged, it automatically subjects you to penalties.
Yes,
right?
simply put, if you're driving, do not drink, and if you drink, do not drive.
Which is that rule, no?
that they do not know that they are committing them out of habit. On May 31, President Aquino signed into law the Anti-Drunk or Drug Driving Act of 2013. The new law penalizes drivers found to be driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs. What traffic laws should drivers be more aware of? With such traffic laws already in place, how will the government act on these? Who will enforce these laws and ensure that the safety of the motorists is upheld?